Some brothers bond over sport. We bond over books.
Sometimes we do have fist fights over which book is better.
But let's keep the peace today and talk about the vampires, training schools, and epics that have formed our favourite reads of 2025.
Readers,
reviewers,
countrymen,
lend us your ears.
And a huge thank you to all of our Patreons.
Thank you to the Pit Fighters, the First Swords, and all of the Bright Stars, Truth and Courage.
Hello and welcome, I'm Will, this is my brother Ed, and together we make the Brothers Gwynne.
Yes,
We're here to talk about our favourite reads of 2025. Last week we talked about our 10th favourite to 5th favourite, and today we're here for the next part of that video. Our 4th favourite to first, with some honourable mentions because we like to cheat and we're allowed. It's our channel, so we'll fit in as many books as we can. We got sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and a whole lot more. Hopefully you've read a few. Hopefully you pick a few recommendations from this. But Ed, let's get into business for your 4th favourite of the year.
It has to be the epic about vengeance, revenge, love, identity, and it is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. And this blew my socks off.
Left you cold?
It left me freezing. My toes, which we won't.
Let's not talk about
we
toes.
talk about our toes a bit more on our Patreon, but
you're giving us a bad name.
But here, yeah, okay, fine. Alexandre Dumas, what a genius! The Count of Monte Cristo is some of the best that fiction can offer. It's one of the newest entries on this list. I mean, I read it very, very recently, and it is just insanely good. I absolutely love the fact that I'm able to include a classic as well, because although there are a lot of classics that I've read, there aren't too many that I've adored through and through. This book is, I mean, it's over 1,200 pages, and to show you how good it is, it's a book that I wish was longer. Yeah.
Whoa.
It's just so good. We all know the story of Edmond Dantes. He's been betrayed by friends and colleagues. And
he's had a rough time.
He's had a pretty rough time, and he's locked up in Chateau d'If, outside of Marseille, and he has to be taken away from his fiancée, Mercedes. And he then plots his revenge. The accent. Thank you very much. He plots his revenge, his vengeance over a number of years, and it is all about him executing those carefully laid plans. And we all know that revenge is a dish best served cold, and Edmond Dantes serves it with ice. It's just so good. I love the writing style. It's so kind of easy to access, but at the same time very poignant, very powerful, and very evocative as well. It feels like Alexandre Dumas had a really deep understanding of character beats, of moments, of the way to build up tension, and when to kind of trickle in some extra details, when to leave the reader hanging, and when to give them what they were craving. And it just feels like a perfectly paced novel. I absolutely adored it, and it's something I'm going to be recommending to pretty much everyone, although I feel like it's something that almost everyone has actually read, but it's just so good that I want to talk about it more and more and more. And the ending was one of the best kind of climaxes I've ever read.
Wow.
Loved it.
Very nice, Ed.
Thank you very much.
And you know what? We're looking sophisticated at the beginning of this video because I also have a classic.
Wow.
I have got Dracula, and I've taken Papa
nice
Gwynne's
classic.
Lovely edition here. This is Dracula. Would you mind holding that, please?
I can hold it.
By Bram Stoker. This has been a year of the vampire for both of us.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to be so. Don't bite me yet. Dracula is a classic, and it's a classic for a reason, in my opinion. It met my expectations in many ways, but also defied them. There are certain characters which really shine here that don't in the adaptations I've seen, and then there are others that aren't given as much room, but I thought it was fantastic. Brilliantly written. I love the letter format of reading all these letters from a group of characters, and it really ties those breadcrumbs of mystery together. Very different, but it did feel a bit like Grave Empire in that way. You got lots of characters that don't realise these cataclysmic events are happening to each other that will actually later influence other people you are following. And that felt quite similar in Grave Empire as Dracula. It's wonderfully written. You can see why it's a classic, and I adored it. Hence why it's the 4th favourite on this list. And I really enjoyed the kind of band atmosphere. There's a group of characters all banding together, and how they help each other, and the motivations and desires for doing so were great. I really enjoyed it. It's a great classic and one that I recommend to everyone. It's very accessible and especially to a fancy audience. They will love it.
And Gary Oldman's great in it. Really, really great.
Weirdly, he wasn't in the book, but the adaptation, I agree. He's awesome.
Every book should have Gary Oldman in, I feel. My number 3 pick, Will, is
Talking about
Empire
vampires.
of the Damned by J. Kristoff. As Will said, it is the year of the vampire. So spoiler alert, Twilight is number 1 for both of us, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Empire of the Damned by J. Kristoff is so damn good. It is really something you can sink your teeth into. It's something that's just dripping in immersion, and it just feels like J. Kristoff set out to write an iconic book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Have you read it? Have you read this bit?
I haven't read book 2.
Ooh! So
I was going to say, though, that Dracula walked so Edward Cullen could shine awkwardly in the sun. And then this is revived.
You better hold on tight.
Revived the vampire.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey. That's all I can say to you. But Empire of the Damned is one of the best fantasy books I've ever read. It's so perfectly paced again, and it is... Well, what it does is that it adds a POV about halfway through. A POV that we were not expecting whatsoever. And that is a very bold decision by J. Kristoff, but it paid off so much. It was handled so brilliantly, and the way that he is able to drip feed information to, similar to Alexandre Dumas, where again he's just kind of filtering facts to the reader, filtering world building, filtering character moments, and you have to kind of figure a lot out for yourself. He doesn't hold your hand, but he does sow a lot of seeds. He's a great farmer.
Nice.
A lot of seeds.
It sucks you into a whole new dimension, doesn't it?
It's like a Dyson. Empire of the Damned
Or
is...
like a vampire.
Or like a vampire. Very good. It's the characters are brilliant. They are just so funny at times. I love their relationships, their dynamics. And what I love is how all of these characters are constantly changing, constantly evolving. Obviously, this is a framed narrative. This is book 2, so I won't go into the spoilers too much. But it's a framed narrative with one character, Gabriel de Leon, just kind of telling his story to another, or a vampire, we will say, to another character. And it's just handled so perfectly. It's so exciting. The ending is crazy. There are some brutal fights here. The dialogue is what Tarantino dreams of having in his films. It's just so sharp and quick-witted. Although I love Tarantino, but it feels like him on perfect form.
Wow.
When he strikes gold in Pulp Fiction. You know, the dialogue is fantastic. And J. Kristoff is someone who's very, very good at dialogue. But yeah, this just quickly captured my heart, my imagination. I had to eat it up, and I cannot wait to read the final installment, Empire of the Dawn, later this year. My most hyped book for a long time.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome.
And then another standalone for me is Blood Over Bright Haven. This is one that we both read in 2025. Love those sprayed edges, but that's not why it's so high up on the list.
It does help.
It is a stunning story. We've got a university, we've got a woman who they're not allowed in the higher echelons of training. They never have, but they're allowed to apply for the test once in every 10 years. So our main character, she is going for the test. There's a lot of responsibility, a lot of weight on her. And does she get in? Maybe. But it's a fantastic story with a heavy magic system. I never thought I would enjoy a book with a heavy magic system. It weighed me down, but in a great way. And that's because the magic really transferred to the plot, and it was very useful. It wasn't just to kind of show off world building.
It's used as kind of a tool for other themes to play out, for, you know, like propaganda and that kind of stuff is really fascinating.
Yeah, often fantasy or any literature really is a form of escapism, but this felt a bit different. There is a strong social commentary. I felt not too much where it sucked you out of the story, but there is a great balance. It definitely has a social commentary about it that most books don't, to a whole new level, and so that might put some people off, but I don't think it's too much that it actually detracts, and it doesn't give you answers. It's not trying to convert you to a certain thought process or policy, but it makes you think about it, which I think is good.
There are some people who kind of say the themes, the messages were a bit too kind of on the nose for a fantasy book. where they're trying to get some escapism, you know, from everyday life. But I think it's important that people know that when they go into it, there is a kind of a social commentary going on. But for people who also don't enjoy social commentary in their books, some people loved it, and some people who do like reading about that kind of stuff didn't like it. So it's kind of, you just kind of have to dive in, see how you feel. It could be a bit like Marmite.
Reading is subjective, but also it's one of the powers of BookTube. I think it's quite important to know a little bit about a book before you go in, because as you found out, you read Gardens of the Moon about 2 years ago. Really did not enjoy it.
No.
You've read it now, and you loved it. And so it really does depend on when you pick a book up. So when you're looking for a form of escapism, don't pick this up. But then maybe in a few months later, you're thinking, I'm all right with that. And you can pick Blood Over Briarhaven up, and I think you'll enjoy it.
It's all about the reading journey and
standalone. It is. We move as people, and the books we pick out at different times that shape us.
On to number 2, which is also a very recent addition to my reading journey, and it is You Dreamed...
Is it recency bias?
You Dreamed of Empires by Alvaro Enrigue, and I've made sure that these books are not recency bias at the top of this list, because...
You travel to the future.
Exactly. I made sure that I was able to go to another dimension and then come back. But no, so You Dreamed of Empires, Alvaro Enrique has immediately catapulted into my favourites list because of so many reasons. And I'm still thinking about so many passages from this book. It's a very short historical fiction, and I say that with inverted quotations because there is some fantastical elements here. There is maybe some historical details that are played with by the author, which is really interesting. Now, when I read a review on Goodreads, there were some kind of words that people used to describe this book that I felt were major spoilers, so I wouldn't want to say too much. But it is an incredible read. This is the story of Hernan Cortez, the incredibly famous, or infamous, should we say, conquistador. It's 1519, and he is riding into Mexico City, which was back then called Tenochtitlan, which is the floating city of the Aztec Empire. Now we have the Emperor Moctezuma, who is struggling to hold on to his fragile empire that has not been helped by these conquistadors arriving and kind of in classic Julius Caesar form, dividing and conquering. And we have the Aztec Empire are allowing Cortez to enter their city. And you kind of are wondering, why would this empire, who are kind of, holding on to all of their assets, all of their pieces, they can see that these people are up to no good, but they still let them into the city. And Alvaro Enrique has some answers here. So we have the conquistadors, we have also the kind of political intrigue of the courtly politics of the Mayan or the Aztec court, and we have Moctezuma as well, who is the emperor. Now this is such a unique and original book because that premise sounds very historical fiction based, but this story is told through three sections. One of them is before the nap, the middle part is the nap, and the third part is after the nap, and it is all about Moctezuma. He's gearing up for kind of a siesta, a little sleep.
Okay.
And then afterwards, what happens after the sleep? Now, there are kind of a lot of hallucinogenics involved in this story as well. There are conquistadors who are in awe of the Aztec Empire and want to dress like these people, want to go and experience the culture. There are some conquistadors who are disgusted with what they are seeing, and they have no kind of will to engage in that culture whatsoever in a positive way. They are just out to seek their own fame, glory, and out for themselves. Now, seeing the way that Alvaro Enrique was able to balance this cast of characters in such a fascinating and unique way, and then he takes history in such a crazy direction. He takes the story in ways that you couldn't even imagine in your wildest dreams. Maybe that's why hallucinogenics are involved in this story. It doesn't sound like the greatest book of all time, but it is incredible. The delivery is just like a fever dream. You are immediately swept up in the incredible immersion that Alvaro Enrique is able to give a sense of, and then how you're kind of spending some time with these characters, seeing their thoughts, seeing their machinations within them. There are some trigger warnings here, definitely. There's a lot of violence, really explicit violence as well. There is assault as well, and it's quite uncomfortable to read. Alvaro Enrigue handles it, I think, very well, where he's very kind of direct, but not overly. It's handled very, I think, very poignantly, I would say. It's very, very powerful. The way that the story evolves towards the end is breathtaking, and there are several passages that have really stuck with me. Some of them were actually scary, and others were hilarious. There's a scene in here that reminds me of that scene from Sinners, the Ryan Coogler film, where he's able to genre bend and mix in a whole host of history, past, present, and future, and it is just a breathtaking book. So please pick it up. I am rambling, but I just love this book so much, and it's so hard to review because of how unique it is. It's 200 pages. It's a palate cleanser. That's all you need to know. Dive in.
I was going to say, it sounds a bit like Glorious Exploits in that the premise doesn't truthfully represent what it actually is and what you love about it.
The tone does feel like Glorious Exploits. Alvaro Enrigue has a really sense of humour, and Glorious Exploits has that similar sense of humour as well. But there are moments that will bring tears to your eyes.
It's a very powerful thing and very difficult for an author to kind of engage with themes of humour and trauma at the same time. So if
absolutely.
they do it successfully, testament to their skill.
Yeah, it's such kind of a pivotal moment of history for Mexico, for America, for the modern day, for the modern age as well. And it's really interesting seeing Alvaro Enrigue's vision for that. So yeah.
Very nice.
Pick it up.
Now, my number 2, this is an incredible book. This is Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, one that you have also now read, Ed. It is absolutely incredible. A lot of people say that there's nothing more horrifying than history, and so that's why we've got a horror book set back in history. Yeah. This is about the kind of formation of America, deconstructing the American dream, manifest destiny, all of that as we follow a member of the Blackfeet band, and in the late 19th century,
mid 19th century,
mid to late to early 20th century, there's a range of time covered in Buffalo Hunter Hunter. I won't say kind of the horror aspects, as that's something you can discover for yourself and enjoy that discovery.
I think it's better to go in blind.
Yeah,
definitely.
I know. I mean, you got to find the book, but then you don't want to know too much going on inside. No. And this is one that really, it defies your expectations in a lot of ways, but also does deliver what you think it will in others. It's a genre bending in a way as well. It's a mashup of many different things. And again, this is quite hard hitting. It is a social commentary again, but one that isn't trying to persuade you to a specific notion. It is basically educating you on history in a way that is quite just straight to the point. It isn't trying to persuade you, it's just showing you what happened, but in a way which is of course fictional, with some horror aspects as well. It's beautiful writing, incredible characters, the dialogue is sensational, and just the storytelling as a whole is just masterful. And just from reading one book alone, I can tell Stephen Graham Jones is a master of his craft, and he pays a lot of attention to every single detail. It's another standalone, another one you could easily pick up, and if it's not for the faint of heart, but if you're feeling ready for something strong and hard-hitting, pick up Buffalo Hunter Hunter.
On to our honourable mentions now. Now, Will and I have chosen 3 honourable mentions each. I have 2 rereads that they probably could have been in the top 10, but because they're rereads...
You said we're only allowed to include them in honourable mentions.
We were putting them in honourable mentions. So my first rereads that I really connected with a lot more this time around was Deadhouse Gate. So I read it a few years ago, and I was kind of blown away by the epic proportions of Deadhouse Gate.
But not in a great way.
I didn't latch onto it at a personal level, at an emotional level, at any kind of level. It just kind of glossed over me. I have reread it this year and quickly discovered why Stephen Erikson is kind of a cult figure in the fantasy community. Now, I know that you can't really get your fantasy card until you've read at least
Memories of Ice.
At least the first 3 of Malazan. So I'm nearly there, but I have to talk about Deadhouse Gates. It just blew me away with how kind of the vision of Stephen Erikson, his mind is crazy. Like it must be crazy. It must be just intimidating to even talk to him, because the way that he crafts story and world building and also character moments here is incredible. I will say we are going to do a spoiler review of Deadhouse Gates, but I will say that Felasin is one of the most interesting characters for me, and I know that a lot of people will say I hate her. I hate that character so much, which is, is quite good for the book.
It's the joy of reading, isn't it?
It's the joy of reading, and things that are divisive are interesting to talk about. And I'd love to hear why you don't like her character. But for me, I was just so fascinated with where her journey was going. And Diker as well was a great character. I love the way that his story played out. But there are so many kind of aspects of fantasy that I see in more modern books that are used here. Maybe used for the first time, but there are some elements from other books that I recognise, and in Deadhouse Gates they're just used perfectly. I love the way that it built up to an earth-shattering crescendo. The way that Stephen Erickson writes about warfare is really fascinating for me. He feels pretty on the nose, and he does say the only thing that detracts from my experience with Deadhouse Gates was he said that they had to fire the arrows.
Let's not dwell on it, Ed. Let's move forward, focus on the positive.
Here, Stephen Erickson and Sarah J. Maas both say that. So I
that's
never
a
thought they would
similarity
be in
between
the
the two.
same club. But it's a fantastic book. It's a riveting read. It's an honourable mention. It's a reread. I loved it. But yeah.
There's 2 rereads that would be up at the very top of this list if we were allowed to put rereads up there. So I'm going to talk about 2 at the same time because it's the same author, same series. It is Assassin's Apprentice and then Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. These are the first 2 installments of the Farseer trilogy. I'm sure they need no introduction because Robin Hobb is one of the queens of literature.
Can we just appreciate the Curious King announcement of the Farseer trilogy and how amazing Assassin's Apprentice looks?
Stunning. My wallet has taken a beating and is no longer existent. But yeah, I'm happy because I'll have them on my shelf. Assassin's Apprentice, I think, is really underrated because Royal Assassin is discussed so much. This is seen as kind of one of Robin Hobb's best books until her later series. And I think that kind of overshadows the brilliance of Assassin's Apprentice. This came out very similar time to A Game of Thrones, and I've said a few times, so sorry those have already heard it. I think Robin Hobb doesn't get enough respect for the political intrigue in her books.
You're saying she's underrated?
I think she is. Everyone talks about her characterisation, but the characterisation through the political intrigue is the same as what George R. R. Martin is praised for. Of course, it's not as epic. It's much smaller.
There are less like iconic moments that are cinematic, aren't there? But there are far more moments that are just very powerful at an emotional level.
It is perfect characterisation. How they work in that characterisation with progression of plot and growth, everything together is brilliant because when it's so character focused, it can easily feel quite stagnant.
Yeah.
But especially with a character like Fitz, who originally has little to no agency, it's really handled well as he's a witness to things going on around him. And then he becomes a more active player gradually. And that transition is really rewarding. And so these are some of my favourite books of all time, but they're honourable mentions, so we can't talk about them too long. On to your next one, Ed.
My next honourable mention that is a reread is Dune by Frank Herbert. This is an amazing copy, isn't it? This is Will's that I actually got him, and I wish I got it for myself.
Thank you, Ed.
But yeah, folio edition Dune. Anyway, Frank Herbert's Dune. When I first read this book, I thought, yeah, pretty cool. Timothy Chalamet could be in this. And that is when the announcement came out that there was going to be a film. So I knew the cut.
Okay.
Yeah, I had that sense. But I recently reread Dune and I just fell in love with this world, with these characters, with the way that Frank Herbert wrote the world and just every house, every moment is just perfectly delivered. I do wish that you didn't have Princess Irulan's spoilers at the beginning of each chapter, but it's kind of like Cormac McCarthy in Blood Meridian.
Blood Meridian, yeah.
If you ignore them, then it's fine. But, I mean, you're not reading this book to be surprised. You're reading this book to see these kind of philosophical ideas play out through a sci-fi lens, and Frank Herbert delivers so incredibly well. I love the development of these characters, of the way that their past and their future has a really big element to play in what happens in the present. I just found Dune to be really powerful. And, you know, I do love this world because of Denis V's Part 2. But going back to this book, I absolutely adored it. I do love Dune Messiah as well. It's really, I really find it interesting talking about Frank Herbert and finding, how he wrote Dune, and then he had a message, a very clear message in that, and that not everyone understood his idea.
Yeah.
So he then kind of wrote a response to Dune, that being Dune Messiah, which is probably going to upset a lot of people when it comes out on the screen. Maybe he should have delivered the message in a different way for Dune. But I just think this is a fantastic book. It's got so many great moments that, again, have kind of... This is like the well, and so many other books dip into this well for whether it's a moment, an idea. I mean, just so, especially a very current series as well. This is, the Lord of the Rings of sci-fi, and for good reason.
Very nice, Ed. I had no idea you've reread this year.
Really?
When did you reread it?
It must have been February.
Quite early on.
Very early on.
There's a lot been going on. It's just
I read
faded in my
and
mind.
listened to it.
Very nice.
At the same time.
Immersive reading, eh?
Oh, it's just immersive reading. It's a new thing this year, and I'm really, really enjoying it.
Very nice, Ed.
It's amazing. Loved it.
My next one is a response to people say, I've got fancy burnout. If you do, read A Song of Legends Lost. You want some unique fancy, read A Song of Legends Lost. You want some epic fancy, read A Song of Legends Lost. You want to see how there's still creativity in this genre. Guess what? Read A Song of Legends Lost.
If you're hungry, read.
Okay. This is a new release of 2025, a book one of a new series, and it was great. A really nice range of characters. It's very epic. You can get lost in that sometimes, but you're meant to. It's fine to not always know all the details, and that was quite refreshing.
Yeah.
I thought this was very bold, very creative, and very unique fantasy. I really don't want to say anything about why it's unique because that spoils it. Thank you, Ed.
Can we just sorry, Will, to interrupt you, but Orbit do the best covers in the
Look
whole
at that.
world.
Look,
it's just incredible.
It is standout. It is awesome. I'm
The
proud
colour
to have it
scheme.
on my shelf. And I always want to enjoy a book, but I wanted to even more because of that cover. And I wanted to have it on my shelf.
Yeah.
But yeah, Song of Legends Lost, a great new release. And as I said, it shows how creative the fantasy genre still is.
Very nice. And my last honourable mention is a new addition to my list, which is The Last of the Wine by Mary Renault. And she was a writer in the 1950s and 60s, and she was quite a polarising figure. She was attacked for her sexuality in the 1950s, but she wrote the most amazing books about ancient Greece, and she's just an incredible writer. So The Last of the Wine is the story of Alexias, a young Athenian nobleman, and he is growing up as a coming-of-age story as Athens are facing against Sparta during the Peloponnesian War, and he makes friends, lovers along the way, enemies and rivals. Alexias studies under Socrates, who was written perfectly. He's like this very crabby old man who loved pushing everyone's buttons. And I just want to read even more about Socrates now because it was just, he was like the ancient Greek Merlin. It's just great. But her vision of ancient Greece is something that you could say maybe has a romantic element to it, but you can see that she is so in love with the period, with the place of ancient Greece.
Lives and breathes it.
And that for me is really exciting to read. When an author adores something so much, you don't mind if it has, if it's seen through rose-tinted glasses. Mm-hmm. She does have a lot of kind of grounded realities. With Alexias's character, is the horrors of war, the fact that you lose people in such, brutal and horrific ways. It feels very progressive in terms of all of that kind of maybe the anti-war sentiment. It's very progressive for the 1950s, perhaps. But it was just handled so well. I love the characters. And reading Mary Renault's vision of ancient Greece is always exciting for me. So if you want kind of a palate cleanser, something that you think, if you're thinking I want to read more Madeline Miller, but there's not too much out there, go read the original Madeline Miller, and to my eyes, the far more effective Madeline Miller, which is Mary Renault.
Bold words.
Thank you.
But now on to my favourite read of 2025 so far. It is Man's Search for Meaning. This is non-fiction. It's very serious. So Viktor Frankl, he was a Holocaust survivor, and he is talking about what inspires him about humanity and how tough humanity is. And it is incredible that someone who went through such horrifying things himself turned it almost into a positive, and uses those experiences as evidence for what people can achieve. It's very powerful. It really resonated with me. I think it resonates with everyone who's picked it up. Thank you to Chris and Mads for recommending it, and also for recommending Blood Over Bright Haven. They're responsible for a lot of great reads
Yes,
this
they are.
year. But yeah, Man's Search for Meaning is one I'd recommend to everyone. You've got to be in a certain headspace to pick it up because of how heavy the subject is. But if you are, I think it's one that will really reap rewards for your own personal life, and it's inspired me.
Again, I'm going to take a leaf out of Will's book here and say it's something that I have to read. I will be reading it very, very soon, definitely this year. And now on to my favourite of the year. And there's a reason I'm wearing this t-shirt. My favourite of the year was, as Will has also spoken about, Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham
I guess you
Jones.
just don't need to say anything about it because obviously I sum everything up.
I'd like to say a few words. Buffalo Hunter Hunter feels like a book written for me. Now, I mean, one of my passions is reading about Native American history and seeing how Stephen Graham Jones was able to write about the Blackfeet and especially the massacre in 1870 as well was harrowing. It's very, very powerful stuff. Now, his writing, this is the best prose I've read, I think, for years and years. It just connected to me on a whole new level. I've never just... It was like I was just plugged into this. It was absolutely incredible. The way that he weaves kind of traditional Blackfeet words and sayings into speech, into a very intricate way of dialogue, into a style of storytelling is so powerful. And you can see that he has thought very carefully about each and every word. I mean, I dread to think how many edits and rewrites he had to do and, go over this with a fine-tooth comb. But the result is the best,
sensational.
Some of the best storytelling I've ever read. Now, when I talk about prose, one book that stands head and shoulders above, I think, every other book I've ever read is The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. That is the best prose I've ever read, and that is the story of the Iliad. And Buffalo Hunter Hunter can rival that for me in terms of prose. It is a frame narrative where we have a character relaying their experiences to another character. And I love that style of storytelling. You do have the kind of the element of unreliable narrator. Some people don't connect to that. Some people hate, a first person past tense.
I love an unreliable narrator.
To me, I find it so fascinating. And to me, I love to kind of push myself to read between the lines, to really think hard. Now, I did devour this book. I did read it in 2 days, but I want to reread it and take it really slowly, just to kind of go very, very, make sure I'm inhaling every detail. There are some incredible scenes here that play out. There is kind of an unwavering drumbeat of tension. It's like walking through the mines of Moria. You know something's coming for you, and you know it's bigger than goblins, and it's going to be big. Buffalo Hunter Hunter is some of the most powerful kind of set pieces I've ever read. And there were just some moments that I would love to do a spoiler review that we could talk about, or even talk with Stephen Graham Jones himself. I'd love to interview him where we could ask him about some scenes, because there are such powerful things here, things that really have this horror element, but in a really grounded way, where it's nothing too crazy, nothing out of the ordinary. It's just a turn of phrase that makes you realise that you're reading about a human experience that makes it even more spine-tingling. Buffalo Hunter Hunter, some of the best writing I've ever read. This is incredible, and there are some horrifying moments. There are some funny moments as well. It's a great balance, and it's definitely my favourite of the year. I can't see anything toppling it.
Maybe Empire of the Dawn, but we will see another vampire story. But there we go. That is our favourite reads of 2025. Let us know what books have brought you some emotional trauma, like ours has. And let us know if you've got any cheerful reads, because as you can tell, we could sure use them.
We need some more cheer, absolutely. Thank you so much for watching this. Please let us know in your comments below what is your favourite read of the year, or your top 10. We'd love to see all of them. But in the meantime, stay safe.
Truth and courage.
Truth and courage.
The Brothers Gwynne.
The Brothers Gwynne.